The Arizona Cardinals are up. One of the worst kept secrets in the league last season is that the Cardinals were an 8-9 football team, missing the postseason by just 2 games. Now, the Cardinals only won one game against the 2024 playoff team, but they did finish third in the West and therefore will face an easier schedule again this year with only 4 playoff teams on their schedule: the 4 seed Rams, 4 seed Texans, 3 seed Bucks, and the 7 seed Packers. So another easy schedule, another chance to go on another under the radar season, a potential chance at a winning season. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Year 3 for Jonathan Gannon. He's another one of those head coaches who had a cringe moment during their opening season. The Cardinals are going to hope he can pull off similar results seen by Nick Sirianni and Dan Campbell. Jonathan Gannon's he was on Hard Knocks.
Okay.
And no, just not on Hard Knocks. It was posted by the Arizona Cardinals social media team, and go look this up.
Is this him
in your
greeting
other
Kyler
time.
Murray?
No, he was giving a speech to the team, and he was basically, the premise of the speech was, are you going to earn your ticket and get on that bus with us? And it was really cringe and really awkward, well worth the watch. It was posted by their social media team, so the Cardinals liked it, and then it was just super cringe. And you think on Nick Sirianni and Dan Campbell's were the press conferences. Nick Sirianni's was one of the worst opening press conferences we've ever seen from a head coach, and then Dan Campbell had the biting your kneecaps off. Now, we've seen great success from both of them as they've gotten further and further into their coaching career with the Eagles and the Lions. So Cardinals fans are going to hope that this is something that they can see from their team as well. One of the first questions I'll go ahead and ask, and pull it up, Kyler Murray, pull up his stats from last season. Good season for him, 3,800 yards, 93.5 passer rating. The touchdowns, a little lower than you would like, but he had 570 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns as well. A good season for Kyler Murray. He's got 2 more seasons under contract with the Arizona Cardinals. So my first question to y'all is, has the contract that they gave Kyler, which was kind of controversial at the time, has he played up to the standards of that contract? Do you expect him to play to those standards of that contract this season as well? What are your thoughts on Kyler just in general? He used to be an Aggie before he was a Sooner.
Yeah, we developed him. #QBU. No, so Kyler spent a year at A&M and then went to Oklahoma where he was actually developed. He kind of sucked at A&M. I'm of the opinion he is currently underrated, actually. I think the switch has flipped. I think most people view him as a QB you can't win with, stuff like that. And then looking at the contract, which was I don't have the exact numbers on it, but he got
It was around $40 million a year.
He got a good chunk of change. The injury also, I feel like it kind of makes it hard to evaluate that. In terms of how I view, he's a QB I do actually think you can win with. The issue is I don't think he's been surrounded with the most talent, offensively or defensively. They've just never really had the best roster, and he has had poor moments. But I was impressed with his season last year. I thought he put him in a lot of good spots to win.
Mm-hmm.
I think going 8-9 with that roster last year really isn't that big of a deal, and just kind of some of the issues they had.
Yeah, that was something we talked about big time in the pre-draft process with talking with the Cardinals, was just that this was a team that had almost zero talent on it outside of Budda Baker, the left tackle, Paris Johnson, Kyler, and Marvin Harrison. And they addressed that big time in this offseason. They went out and got a lot of pieces that can fill in these kinds of roles. In the draft, they kind of get a steal, if you would say, and a slide in Walter Nolan out of Texas A&M, not out of Old Piss, in my opinion. Debate on that if you'd like. But they also get the big steal that we kind of thought, Will Johnson. He slides all the way to the second round out of Michigan, this is a guy who's going to be at one point last year, he was mocked to be inside the top 5, pretty much guaranteed, and he slides all the way to the second round. They had Jordan Birch, a linebacker from Oregon, who's played a ton of snaps, and then Cody Simon as well, who's played a ton of snaps for the national champion Buckeyes. In free agency, they added the veteran Calais Campbell. He returns to Arizona. Jalen Jones, who was a good corner for the Bears, joins them.
Gig 'em.
Another Aggie as well. Josh Sweat, who is one of the premier pass rushers from these Eagles teams that have gone to the Super Bowl the past 3 seasons, joins the Arizona Cardinals. And then Dalvin Tomlinson, who is aged but has been a very productive defensive lineman for the Cleveland Browns over the previous years. So my next question to y'all, do you guys think they've addressed the talent thing, or is this a team that's going to, like we've discussed in the past, specifically in the AFC East, is this a team that kind of has another year to go before they're there with the talent?
I think the talent, they made huge upgrades, especially on that defensive line. I mean, you talked about them spending the first-round pick on Nolan and then bringing in Tomlinson and Campbell. Last year, I think they were a little bit smaller and just, like you said, like it was a talent thing. They just were starting guys that should have been backups on any other, like should have been backups there and would have been backups on just about any other defensive line. So I think that they did definitely upgrade the talent there. I think there was also, I'll be interested to see what the offense looks like, because there it wasn't necessarily a lack of talent. It was more of just a lack of chemistry at times.
Fair.
And so we'll see what you can do when you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray and Trey McBride. Because Murray and McBride, I mean, they played well together. But
they were excellent last season.
They got to find a way to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved.
Exactly. And so I'll be interested to see if they can utilize the talent they already have on offense. And then also, I mean, on defense, what does that look like? Can they utilize that talent, or is that an institutional, is that a management issue where they just, for some reason, can't get players to click and work together well? I don't know.
Yeah, the Marvin Harrison thing is a big one. Did you get that picture? Did you put that picture in there?
I couldn't get it.
That's fine. Okay, so a huge tweet, and more specifically, it was a huge conversation topic with Marvin Harrison last year, not only from a Cardinals perspective, but from a fantasy football perspective, because we had guys who were taking him in the first round of fantasy football drafts because of the talent that he was. Marvin Harrison was outright, point blank, he was not used correctly last season. He is known for his elite route running, specifically his ability to create separation on horizontal routes, whether that's ins and digs, or that's outs, or it's curls, or whatever it is. He's in he has the 47th highest horizontal route percentage last season out of receivers, and yet he wins those routes almost top 20 in the league. But he was the 19th highest vertical route percentage, meaning the Cardinals were just sending him on goes, and a lot of the time they were sending him on go routes with just like no intention of like ever throwing him the ball. It was almost like a distraction just to escort the safety out of the play. And he was top 20 in vertical routes. And Marvin Harrison is not a guy that's known for his speed and breaking you over the top, and yet he's top 20 in vertical route percentage. He wins those routes at a top 50 rate at 49th in the league. And so Harrison was just used improperly the entire season. That's something the Cardinals fan base noticed. And then this was a tweet that was also sent out this offseason that kind of highlighted that and put that into a statistical manner.
Yeah.
And so that's something they're expecting for them to improve on this season. I haven't heard necessarily from Cardinals training camp. I haven't really looked into it too much, but it's something the Cardinals fans really hope they use. And for fantasy football fans too, like in dynasty leagues specifically, Marvin Harrison is supposed to already be a wide receiver 1, and last season he played at wide receiver 2 at best from a fantasy football perspective.
Yeah, so a couple things about Harrison. I think one of the things that, first of all, wasn't their stats that his top speed was record breaking low through the first 3-6 weeks of the season?
Yeah, that was a report at some point.
The next gen stats, they track player speed. It was this dude is running so much slower than he was in college, and a lot of it looked like lack of effort, and maybe that was in part because
I think he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, he was running verticals, and it was well, they're not going to throw me the ball. I'm just not going to try. So that's one thing. I will also add this to play a little bit of devil's advocate to say that Harrison's season was not awful. He had over 800 yards and 8 touchdowns as a rookie, which it's just when you think about the fact that he was a 4th overall pick, that's when it's okay, it was bad. So it's more of it's relative to his position. If you had a late first rounder or a second round pick that came in and it had 800 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns, it would have been a lot different of a story. So the narrative is very much pushed by where he was drafted, but I think that we could see more development in that second year, especially because, he was a pretty young. He came out as a junior, but I feel like he was young even as a junior. He turned 22.
And it was for him. It was kind of rare because he wasn't one of these receivers that was coming out of college. He's not a big personality. You think of Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He's one of those receivers that just was not a huge personality, and that's not something we've seen from these young receivers. Although you have seen it from a few receivers, specifically Ohio State is known for that. JSN is not a huge personality. Chris Olave is one of the quietest guys you'll ever hear. And so Marvin Harrison was quiet, and I think that was probably part of the reason he didn't get off to a good start. Also, Kyler Murray at one point throughout the season said, sometimes the ball goes to him, but that's not my job. So part of it was clearly a chemistry issue between Kyler and Marvin. I mean, this guy was drafted for Kyler Murray and not the other way around, and yet Kyler is saying it's not even my job to get him the football. That's just not the way it needs to be played. So hopefully that's something we can see them improve on this season. A few offseason losses. They lost Will Henderson, who started at guard for them a ton last season, and then a big loss for me, and that's kind of the hole on their defense now, is they lost Kazir White to free agency. He was their middle linebacker for a few years last season. A few years. He
cool.
Was lost in this offseason. He was there this last season. Their linebacking crew is not great, but their defensive line and specifically their secondary has got a lot of playmakers, so they hope to make up for that. I wonder if that's going to be an issue stopping the run game, and that's something that the teams in their division specifically rely on. Seattle is going to be a team that's going to run the ball a ton, I expect, with Sam Darnold. San Francisco is obviously one of the best running teams of all time, given Kyle Shanahan and that zone scheme. And then the Rams will even rely on it a good amount with Kyron Williams. So I'm curious if Arizona is going to be a team that's going to be able to stop the run because of their lack of depth and really talent. That is their spot where they don't have a lot of talent, is in the linebacking crew. And that is the players that make all the tackles. Those are the players that lead your team in tackles. Excuse me. Your defensive line is the team that kind of holds up the offensive lineman, and then your linebackers are supposed to hit the gaps and get the tackles. So I'm curious to see how that looks. Offensive line is not a huge improvement. Paris Johnson Jr. Is a franchise left tackle, and he played like that last season. But outside of that, really Jonah Williams and their center, who I will not pronounce his name because it's hard to pronounce, played well as well last year. But their guards are not great. Kyler is still going to be a quarterback that's going to have to scramble a good amount, but, I mean, he's shown that the past few seasons. He's had gems. You think about that 2-point conversion he had where he was running around for literally like 35 seconds last year. He is still very capable of doing that even after the injuries.
Was it who was it that he had the Hail Mary to D-Hop with?
That was during the COVID season against the Bills.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that was the COVID season. But Kyler is still going to have to be a quarterback that's going to have to do that a little bit. But I think in large part this is a team that has addressed a lot of needs, and they've added talent to a lot of positions. It's now just going to be a question of, will it click? Can Jonathan Gannon take them to a next step after a poor first season and then an 8-9 last season? Getting into their schedule.
I want to add something just really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
It came out that we were talking about just their additions on the D-line, especially. Walter Nolan did sustain a calf injury, and so his status to start season's up in the air. He's on the physically unable to perform list right now, but just talking about trying to infuse the team with talent, you know, he's a key piece, and they really need him to get healthy and play well, and that's not the best start for that.
I wonder if they will be hesitant to not hesitant, but be very slow and cautious with that injury with the increase in Achilles injuries. Okay, I know it's the NBA, but it's just weird that like we're seeing this rise of calf injuries lead to Achilles injuries, and we've even seen, I mean, Achilles injuries in football players. We saw Cousins tear his Achilles a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Rodgers tear his Achilles. So I'll be interested to see with
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, is there more research and more data coming out that these, light calf injuries are leading to more severe injuries when rushed back? I'll be interested to see when he comes back and what kind of workload he has when he comes back.
Yeah, they're going to want him to play, and he was drafted in mind to be a play now player. Right. This is not a development piece for Arizona whatsoever. But getting into their schedule this year, they will open in the Superdome. They're favored right now by 5.5 against the New Orleans Saints. and that'll be a pivotal, opening to their season, a pivotal opening for the Saints season as well. This year they'll play the NFC South. They will also play the AFC South, so two of the worst divisions in football, which really helps from a scheduling perspective. Although you guys are not very high in the Arizona Cardinals, so I'll pivot to y'all before I come back to me. Where do you guys see your kind of doubts with Arizona and the schedule this season? Sanders, you have them going 6-11.
Yeah. So I think part of that is they do play the AFC South, but they still have to play the Texans, and they have to go to Indianapolis. So we'll see how that goes. I probably think of Kyler Murray as like a average NFL quarterback. I've got him probably in that like sitting around 16 through 18, 19 as far as quarterbacks go. And I'm not the highest on him, and maybe that that could be fixed with a good season from another good season from him. But yeah, I just am not the highest on them. And then as far as the defense goes, like you said, the linebacker core is not as talented, and then the defensive line is either young or new, so it's a bunch of new pieces they brought in, which should be improvements, but that all has to click for it to work out and for them to win. So that's why I've kind of got them lower. And this is, we talked at the beginning of the show, one of those things where I feel like doing my picks for other teams, I was like, yeah, the Cardinals that's a win for the other team, that's a win. And then I kind of got here and I was like, I had them going, I think 4-13, and I had to go in and fix some things because I was like, this is better. They're better than 4 wins.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been going 7-10. Guess kind of for similar reasons to Sanders. It's more of I do legitimately think they had a great offseason, but I kind of have to see it to believe it. And given the division they're in, that also makes it tougher for me to just be like, oh yeah, they're going to turn it around and have a winning season. But they were a team I struggled with a lot picking this. I was like, I texted you all. I was like, Arizona Cardinals winning the division. It's a team that I legitimately think could be a massive swing team, kind of one way or the other. And I just decided to have them kind of take a small step back, even if they are probably a better team than they were last year.
Yeah, I view them as one of those teams who can reach the postseason that didn't last year. Every single year, on average, 6 new teams make the playoffs that did not make it the season before, and I see Arizona as one of those teams that can do that. I had them going 8-9 and missing the postseason, though, and it's in large part due that they drew the short end of the stick in a few of their third-place weaker games. Those third-place weaker games are third-place Green Bay, who made the postseason last year, third-place Cincinnati, who barely missed the postseason last year, and the third one is third-place Dallas, who gets Dak Prescott back this year. So
tough spot to be.
I have them losing all 3 of those games, and that's the difference in them making the postseason or not with me. So that for me, they drew the short end of the stick there, while their schedule is really weak from a division aspect, playing both South divisions. That's really going to be the difference in them making the postseason. But I see this as a team that could very easily make the postseason, given the schedule. I don't see them as the worst team of the division. You guys do, I assume.
Yeah.
Maybe tied with me for worse in the division.
I just don't see that. I think they're better than Seattle, who I assume is who you guys have down there at the 4th, and we'll get into them here in a few minutes. But Kyler, I think the only thing on Kyler is I don't necessarily see him as a quarterback that's going to carry his team into some victories. While he can make elite plays here and there, I think a few things have to go right for him to be in those kinds of spots. And then while they added talent to a lot of places, I don't necessarily yet see that talent being like difference makers. Marvin Harrison is a elite wide receiver, maybe in a few years. We're not sure if he's that this year. Will Johnson, who fell in the draft, is like, well, he could be really good this year, but he's, again, a rookie. Walter Nolan.
And there's a reason he fell in the draft, too, right?
Agreed as well. Walter Nolan is dealing with injury issues already in training camp. Josh Sweat is another year older. Same with Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell as well, who's the oldest player in the league. So I think a lot of talent there, but it's a lot of B- to C+ kind of talent. Not a lot of A's or A- out there. And so I think that's going to be the difference, in especially like these divisional games and these go either way games. Like do you have a player that can go out there and make a play for you? You know, they're not dynamic at running back necessarily with James Conner and Trey Benson. They're dynamic at tight end and receiver, sure, but Kyler's got to get them the ball, and that's kind of been an issue throughout his career, as evidenced with Marvin Harrison last year, relying a ton on Trey McBride. But again, Trey McBride had his touchdown issues. He was not a tight end that he was in the end zone, I believe, once last year.
Yeah.
And for the receiving numbers that he put up, it's a huge question mark there. So we would not be surprised if they make the playoffs this year, but it also feels like they're just not quite there yet. And you can't confidently go into these games and say, oh, they are better than the other team, or that they have a chance to make a play here or there that could swing those kind of games. And those are games against like Dallas, who maybe they're there on the same talent perspective, but Dallas has CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons that can win those kind of games. You think about Tampa Bay, like Tampa Bay has Baker in that passing offense who can just light you up for 400 yards. San Francisco, they have Christian McCaffrey and Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. You know, in division with the Rams, they have Stafford, who's won a Super Bowl, and they have Puka Nacua, who can just destroy you, who we'll get into later on. Cincinnati, they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow. So Cardinals fans, if you feel like that's a little bit low, there's a lot of reason to have hope for this season, but do you have the players yet that are the playmakers that can swing those kind of games where you're there on a talent perspective, but you can't make the plays to win the game? So I have them going 8-9, Sanders at 6-11, and Jack at 7-10. That kind of closes out our Cardinals. Go ahead.
I mean, decent. I was gonna say that's kind of decently close to some of the other. I feel like that's as far as it goes. That's on the closer end.
They feel like a team like with the schedule, it feels impossible for them to be a 4-win team like you had them at one point.
Yeah.
Which I think is a large part the reason you changed those.
It was
those
a good
games.
call to change.
Yeah. I did not want to get I was not going to go through that today.
I think a huge thing, and I'm going to mention it probably through all four of these teams as well, is like the NFC West is kind of shafted in the fact that they are all on the West Coast. And when you have to play, in this case, you're playing the AFC South and the NFC South, that's flying across the country for multiple games. In fact, at least 4 every season. And those games are hard to do. The Rams have a few games where they have noon kickoffs. Like, they're at Cleveland for a noon kickoff. And the Cardinals are no different there as well. So they kind of get shafted there. Like, yeah, you're playing a easy schedule, but you also have to play the Saints at noon kickoff to start your season, which is 9 a.m. for you. So
yeah,
they're kind of shafted there. But that kind of closes it for our Cardinals predictions as a group with the game-by-game predictions that has the Cardinals going 6-11. And maybe in the future this needs to be reworked because the group predictions coming together can have some weird
They can be a little
scenarios. Like we have the Giants at 1-16 and the Bills at 16-1.
Yeah,
and that doesn't necessarily reflect how we actually feel as a group.
I feel like we really just need to honestly average out our record.
I think I'll do that for the NFL full ones.
Yeah,
we'll look at those and we'll decide which one we want to pick.
I kind of like it,
but I do think it's kind of funny.
It is funny, yeah.
I mean, if 2 out of 3 of us think that the Bills are gonna win a game,
I mean, yeah, and then look at like the NFC North predictions where we have all 4 teams are either 8-9 or 9-8.
Yeah.
So it's like
it's pretty awesome. That would be what a division.
It's pretty funny. Arizona goes 6-11. Although 6-11 was the worst record we have out of the 3. We had 2 better records than that, but they go 6-11 in our group predictions, and that kind of closes it out for the Arizona Cardinals. Any final thoughts on the Arizona Cardinals? Do you like the new uniforms that they introduced? I think it's been 2 years, but do you like them? Do you like the black uniforms?
I think so, yeah. If I'm remembering what you're talking about correctly, I think I don't mind them.
I'm not the biggest fan. The black's fine. I think I prefer their old uniforms, though.
Yeah, I do as well.
Final thoughts.
I mean, I was also the kid that playing in Madden. Me and my brothers, like, we turned on like the most bright, like, color rush stuff we could.
Sure.
Like a fan favorite was the Seahawks neon.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big favorite of ours. So I love a good like all one color uniform.
Yeah, I've seen Marvin Harrison perform well. I traded for him in a dynasty league to pair him up with Malik Neighbors.
I drafted him in a dynasty league.
so
what did you give up for him?
I don't even. I think I gave up a running back.
Interesting.
Or maybe I gave up a wide receiver.
Was it?
I think I gave up James Conner.
You got,
And then some, I'm sure. But like I think I gave up James
was
Conner
this
and
later
maybe
in the
another wide
season
receiver.
after it was kind of?
Yeah. It was
Okay.
like Marvin Harrison wasn't having the best season, and Morton's Molecules was looking to make a win now move.
Oh, Morton.
And
Why
so
would you trade Marvin Harrison?
I have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, and I'm looking.
Was
for
he like
that
in
to
the
be-
playoffs? Was he like trying?
I think
to,
he was
like,
fighting for a playoff
So he
spot.
was trying to get. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
I was in the same spot, kind of, but I never got the trade to happen. I was trying to convince, in the league that I won, I was trying to convince my buddies, like, through the first 3 weeks, specifically the guy who had him, give me Marvin Harrison because he sucks. Look at his numbers. And I was thinking, oh, he'll pop off later. He never did, so thankfully I never made that trade, and he
Sure.
regrets. He took Marvin Harrison in the, like, top 5 picks of the second round. So
I think Jackson had the
in a,
But
10,
was
in
it
a
a-
10-team league.
Was it a keeper league or not?
Not a keeper
Oh,
league.
okay,
So it was
okay,
a
okay.
top 15 pick
Yeah.
on Marvin Harrison.
That's
That's
tough.
the difference. I was not a good team last year, so I was like, I'm making this trade
Yeah.
for the future.
And in a keeper league, it makes sense to like if that had been a keeper league, it would have made sense for your friend to hold on to him. But in a 10-team like redraft, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
He ended up losing, even though he was the number 1 overall seed.
Unlucky.
So suck it.
That is tough.